Should the Arizona Diamondbacks be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? We have more on this right now. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K. Of course, my name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor, PHNX. Happy to finally be in the same room as this man. This is my vice mayor, your thunderstick, the one and only Jesse Friedman.
You're not going to be saying that for very much longer, Derek, because pretty soon we're going to be in the same room for entirely.
Literally, we're going to be sleeping in the same room. I'm going to be so sick of you. I can't wait. Yeah. I can't wait. But of course, I also can't wait to talk to our guest today because we are very excited to be joined by the one and only Jordan Shusterman from Cespedes Family BBQ. Jordan, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you, man. Always love your insight. And of course, excited to talk to you about the first half of the MLB season. I guess that's my first question is, what are your thoughts on what the first half has been like so far?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you guys are really, really in the thick of it. I think you're definitely not the only podcast doing a should we buy or sell conversation.
Right.
I think that's roughly half the league right now. And I feel like in terms of just big picture narratives, I feel like that's kind of the thing that kind of stands out to me. And with the All-Star break coming up, it's a good time. It's a good time to kind of reflect on that stuff. But I'm in draft mode, guys. I know big draft coming up for the Snakes. I'm super excited to see what they do, and it's just I think I was reflecting on this. I'm heading down to Texas tomorrow, but Jake and I at Cespedes BBQ, like we do as you guys know, like we kind of do everything, which means like the futures game and the draft is like on its own a lot of stuff that we're doing, and then we also are doing the home run derby and the All-Star game and everything, right? Like I feel like a lot of the prospect people are doing those two things and then they leave. We're like, nope. So we are in for quite a week, but I'm excited to see you two guys down there as well.
Yeah, we can't wait for that.
Jordan, the Diamondbacks pick 29th apparently, because apparently they went to the World Series, and the ramifications of that is that they're not picking nearly as high
Huge
as they
mistake.
have in recent years. So they have the 29th pick. They have the 31st pick as well. That because of Corbin Carroll winning the Rookie of the Year award, part of the new prospect promotion incentive that MLB installed recently. They also have the 35th overall pick. That's a competitive balance round A pick. So they don't have, they're not picking in the top 5 or anything like that this year, but they've got several draft picks kind of bunched together. What do you think their options are going to be like at that spot? I mean, is that a reasonably good position for them to be in?
Yeah, I mean, they're not picking in the top 5, but I believe they have a top 10 size bonus pool at the very least. And what that means is it really enables you to do some interesting things. I know the Mariners were in a very similar situation last year, and they just, put out a whole documentary about it, which is now part of that is because the players that they drafted have had very strong starts to pro ball, and it's kind of risen the status of their farm system. But they had 4 picks on day 1 of last year's draft, part of which because of the same thing where Julio got them, a first round pick by winning Rookie of the Year, and then they had a competitive balance pick, and they had the pick, in the back half of the first round. And it just enables so much more flexibility. And especially in a draft like this, where especially the high school class, once you get past the first 4 or 5 names, basically anybody could be in play for them that they want. It's on the high school level. And I don't know how you guys feel, you're never really drafting for need, but I do think that like in some cases you are sometimes drafting for need within a farm system, not necessarily big league need, but sometimes you're trying to fill out different layers of a farm system. And I think for Arizona, they're just going to have a lot of opportunities, and And let's hope. Man, listen, it wasn't, what was it, 2019 or 2018 when they had like 8 picks in the top 100. Some of those went well, some of those not so much. So they've had experiences with this before, but it's still a great opportunity at the very least.
How would you describe just the quality of this draft overall?
Yeah, I think, I'm such a draft dork that like I love talking about this stuff. And part of me is bothered when I pull up you'll see this on multiple outlets where it's like the first thing you read in a draft preview is this draft isn't very good once you get past top 10. I'm like, well, okay, well, that's not fun. And also the reality is like the draft is as good as you make it. I mean, there's going to be some of the best players will come after the first round anyway. I just published my top 50 prospects for this upcoming draft. And, I'm trying to reflect where the industry is feeling, right? I'm trying to, it's my own evaluations as well, but I'm trying to give a sense of these are the guys we can expect to hear on day one, right? And I hope that those are the names we hear on day one. But man, we don't know. Like, especially with the variance with the high school players, like look at Gunnar Henderson, right? I mean, Corbin Carroll's a version of this too. But look at Gunnar Henderson, right? Yeah. It's not like teams didn't know who he was, but no one was like, yeah, he's obviously a first, top 10 pick, right? And there's a huge difference between going in the top 10 and even once we get into the second half of day one, let alone days 2 and 3. So I think any draft can be a strong draft or weak draft. We will have no idea for years from now.
Well, there are obviously some built-in challenges that other sports don't face with their draft, but MLB's draft just seems to be the one that lacks the most interest. And I know you guys do a great job of getting us prepared for it and kind of you guys hype it up more, I think, than maybe even Major League Baseball does themselves. But what can they do better to promote the MLB draft? Like, is it just the timing, having it occur during the All-Star game in the middle of the season? Is it the fact that we never know with baseball players if they're actually going to, work out as a major leaguer?
I think that some of it has naturally become a little bit easier to follow for a casual fan just because of where college baseball is and has become a lot more accessible and how those players have become a lot more noticeable. And then also even the prep players, I think certainly of a younger generation. I hate that I can say that, but I do think it's true. like an example like Max Clark last year. Or even like a Drew Jones, right? I know it's a little bit different. I think Max Clark is a better example because he was a kid in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, who had more Instagram followers than 95% of big leaguers, right? Right. And like, there's some versions of that this year too, with guys like Connor Griffin, right? Like, there's some of these players now have been, even in the high school levels, have been quote unquote famous in these baseball, social media spaces for a while. And so there's opportunities there for the players themselves to kind of grow the event. And I think that will kind of happen naturally. As for what the league can do, I mean, they're trying to make the combine a thing. We went and covered the combine. We had a great time, but we also didn't necessarily come away thinking, this should be like the grand television event. I think it clearly still is very limited in that sense, but that's okay. I think it still serves an important purpose. But for us, it's all about how can we bridge the gap between not worrying too much about like this guaranteeing this guy is going to be the face of your franchise, but telling these interesting stories, because that's the beauty of the draft, is that these players are coming from so many different places in a way that, not that isn't true in other sports, but it's not quite to the same degree, I feel like personally, whereas obviously, and it's just so many more picks. So there's so many more stories to tell, which is, I think, the fun part for me.
Jordan, of course, we're looking at mock drafts, and it really seems like people have no idea what the Diamondbacks are going to do at 29, at 31, or at 35. I'm seeing some of the same players pop up in different picks for them. But there was some level of consensus. Both ESPN and Baseball America have the Diamondbacks taking Walker Janik. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Catcher out of Sam Houston State. We also have a Malcolm Moore, another catcher out of Stanford, over on MLB Pipeline. The chances of the Diamondbacks actually winding up with one of those two players, I don't feel great about. But just so we can say that we talked about real names, what do you know about those two guys?
Sure. Well, back to the first thing about just their bonus pool, like it would, because what that flexibility gives you is the ability to go over slot. Generally, that is going to involve high school players. So that doesn't mean that all 3 of those first 3 early picks are all going to be high school players, although that is what the Mariners did. Like, that is an option, right? I think you can assume, it's easier to balance out and say, let's go get this high schooler that is projected to go pick 20. We can get him at 29 or 35. We're going to have to pay him a little bit more, and then we'll save and we'll pay a college player later. But you could also just go 3 high schoolers and then figure it out later. There's versions to do that. As for the 2 players you mentioned, I love both of them so much. If you read the rankings that I just put out, it's Yannick for the record.
Thank you.
Just in case they do pick him.
Walker Yannick.
I have a crazy Walker Yannick story that I will tell you guys off the air. What a horrible tease! Horribly unprofessional. But I'm going to do it anyway. It's just not. It's not. The point is, let's talk about him as a baseball player. Both of these guys too. They are my top 2 catchers on the board. I don't think that's necessarily consensus. There are some other college catchers like Caleb Lomavita and Jacob Cozart who are kind of in that level. I think Malcolm Moore and Yannick are both awesome and really interesting 2 different stories, because Moore has been known since he was like a sophomore in high school in California, and he ends up, strong commitment to Stanford. He goes there, has a really good, strong 2 seasons. He's a sophomore eligible pick. We talked to him at the Combine, one of our favorite conversations that we had for sure. And then Yannick is totally different. Nobody knew who this guy was. He was like the 250th ranked player in the state of Texas 3 years ago. And now he's probably going to be a first-round pick because he's just gotten better and better every year at Sam Houston. And the really cool thing with Walker Yannick is last year, man, this dude could have gone in the transfer portal and gone anywhere. He's playing for the Bearcats, and in the age of college baseball where this is just kind of how it works. If you're balling out at a mid-major, the SEC is going to come calling and say, hey, we'll give you whatever NIL and all these special things, and you get to come play in the SEC. He's like, no, I'm going to stay in Huntsville, Texas, and I'm gonna stick with my boys. And Bearcats with a K, like you can't leave those guys. and he had an even more amazing season, and I just think he's a really fun player. And yeah, I mean, if catcher is, you guys know how much I love Adrian Del Castillo, but if you're looking at catcher in the org depth chart and seeing it as a weakness, then yeah, it would make a lot of sense. If either of those guys are there that late, where I have them ranked, I think I would be surprised if they make it that far. So I'll just say that. So I think either of those picks would be awesome that late in the first round.
Is there anyone else that kind of stands out to you at those picks as far as your projections go?
Sure. Yeah. So just flipping it over to the high school, just because now I will say I feel way more comfortable talking about the college players just because I have a much greater grasp on them, having watched them play significantly more either in person or, so I will say that I think that there are some really, really interesting high school. There's a really deep group of high school shortstops in this range that all have slightly different skill sets, right? Kellen Lindsay is just really the speedy guy. Everyone's comparing him to what Trey Turner basically looked like when he was coming out of high school, and that makes a lot of sense. He's one of the fastest players in the draft, a guy that was hurt last summer. If he wasn't hurt last summer during all the showcase events, he would have been probably easily a first-round pick coming into the year. Instead, no one really knew about him until a month into the season. Wyatt Sanford, another high school shortstop at Texas. Carter Johnson, he's more in like that Gunnar Henderson mold, also from Alabama, so he obviously gets those comps. And there's a lot of pitchers. Like I actually feel better and are more excited about some of those high school pitchers in that range. And it's just going to be how aggressive do they get trying to float some of those guys down to those middle picks.
Transitioning to the All-Star break, Jordan, of course, that is also coming up. Major League Baseball is cramming a whole lot into just a few days with all these events happening. I personally think that Major League Baseball's All-Star festivities are among the best of the major American sports.
He's
if not the best.
They're the best.
I think it's the best. I mean, the NBA All-Star game, like I don't think I've watched that in like more than a decade because it's dumb. But at the same time, I think, maybe certain things that baseball does have gotten a little stale. Maybe the home run derby isn't quite the spectacle that it once was. I know they have some rule changes coming on that front. Are there any changes that you would make, Jordan? Do you want to see do we do a bunt competition? Do we do just an all-out skills competition? Do we do an exit velo challenge of some kind? Like, how do we spice things up here?
Well, we should note we are getting some of those things for the Futures game. And this is something that the promotion around it has been interesting. And I know I'm not sure if it's going to be televised live or not, but the Futures game they are doing a skill showcase. They're doing bunt challenges. They're doing all that stuff.
There we go.
Let's go.
So that's happening, and I'm very excited to see what that looks like in person, how it's presented to the audience at home. A lot of potential with that, especially it's a good place to kind of test it out with the Futures gamers. Obviously going to be a little bit more likely to do that. But I don't know. I think that it's in an okay spot. I think we'll see if the kind of subtle changes that they made to the home run derby field and format makes any sort of tangible difference in terms of the flow, if it makes people more happy and that it feels like it's more fair. I always thought that was kind of overrated. Like, we're just trying to be entertained by home runs. Like, everyone getting too bent out of shape about like, oh, he got screwed because he was facing this guy. It's like, look, what do you want? This is all make believe. Like, they're just hitting home runs for 3 hours. Like, how serious do we have to take this? And so I'm going to enjoy it no matter what. This is my other problem, is when people ask me and it's like, hey, what would you change about baseball? I'm like, I don't know. I'm having a good time. So
you're like, nothing. It's perfect the way
I'm like,
it is.
you're the ideal consumer already.
Yeah, so. To some degree. But I will say that, like, I think that the Futures Game, Skills Challenge is an example, and so much about baseball now, just so many of the things that are changing for some people like, some people don't like. The league's trying. The league knows that they want to keep, changing things up and trying new things. And sometimes those are going to be great, and sometimes those are going to flop, and like, that's fine. But like, I can commend the league office for at least attempting new things, and we'll see which ones of them actually stick.
I know this is similar to the Bowman hitting challenge, but I want like a Topgolf type thing with targets where they get points, and you can like go for like a long ball if you want to try to get like more points, or you could just like single them to death down the third baseline, something like that.
This is happening. I'm telling, this is literally happening on Saturday. So again, like, this is on everyone involved, respectfully, who are doing a very good job. The promotion around this event, and this is my issue too. Like, I would say, okay, what is my biggest problem with this? I don't know how to fix that. It's the fact that the Futures Game is going on while regular season games are still happening. Right.
Yeah.
The fact that day 2 and 3 draft, this is really more of a me problem. I can't, I would love to spend all day following day 2 and 3 of the draft. It's not possible because they're on Monday and Tuesday. I said years ago that the Futures Game should be Sunday Night Baseball, leading into the All-Star game. Like, that would be the way to do it.
Yeah.
Instead, it's now Saturday afternoon, and they've made it 7 innings. And so it's like, the kind of mixed messages there also kind of frustrates me, because it's like, you want to do it, but then by cramming all of it into one weekend, like, on the surface, it's like, oh, that makes so much sense. We're like maxing it out. And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, everything is probably being detracted by the other, on top of the fact that regular season games are still going on, and you just have a majority audience that are not going to be able to pay attention to it.
So it's like the opposite of the NFL, where the NFL needs to stretch their season out and make everything into an event so that it feels like it's there all year. Baseball has too much. They're like, we got to figure out where to get this stuff in at.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's that's my one thing. And at this point, especially now that you have moved the draft there, like, I don't know what the solution is for the Futures Game in particular. But you guys will be there by Saturday. If you are, then you will see it. You will see what we're talking about here.
Can't wait.
Last thing for me here, Jordan. I just want to give you the very small task of fixing the Diamondbacks. They're two games under 500. Trade deadline approaching. What do you got?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's weird because they've kind of hovered around like the same playoff odds for pretty much 2 months, and so like, all these teams, it's so hard in this National League mess to like get too excited or concerned when you're just always kind of in it. I don't know. Like, I know these last couple losses were really not fun, but they were kind of on a little bit of a run there, especially offensively. It felt like they were really clicking. But I mean, Jesse, we talked about this before the season. Like, the bullpen situation now, you thought that like Paul Sewald was, in theory, the one thing we were counting on, right? And now here we are, and that sucks. I love Paul Sewald more than anyone, and of course, I want him to figure it out. But we knew that this was going to be a thin group, and I mean, this is the most obvious team in the league if they're going to try something, to just go start patching it together. I mean, even a trade like what the Mets just did, going and getting Phil Maton, it doesn't look necessarily like a huge deal on the surface, but that can pay dividends. The Mets, talk about the few bullpens that have been worse in Arizona recently is the Mets. I mean, it's like they were like, listen, maybe we're not going to be buyers, but if we have any chance of like sticking around in this thing, we got to figure this out. And so you bring in something like that. So I could see them doing something like that. Being much more aggressive than that, I don't know. I feel like they're going to play we got Erod. He's our trade deadline acquisition. And there's some validity to that, but then you can also understandably kind of roll your eyes.
And that's my question is, with those guys returning, I mean, you have Jordan Montgomery, who has been a disappointment this season, but also, at times has shown glimpses of what we thought we were going to get out of him. It just has glimpses, maybe 2 games this season. But it does feel like the Diamondbacks get back Merrill Kelly, they get back Jordan, they get back, Erod after presumably some of them after the All-Star break, one of them maybe, or after the trade deadline. Does that make it so that this team doesn't really need to panic? I mean, considering those arms are going to be back to the starting rotation?
I mean, I do look at them in this mix of teams, and I do think that the best version of them is probably right there as the first team. Like, I still, talent-wise, I think I still have them behind San Diego. And at this point, standings-wise, like, St. Louis has built something of a cushion, and I mean, I picked the Cardinals to win the division, and I mean, I just don't think that's going to happen. But like, I was pretty confident that St. Louis would have a better season this year, and that's been mostly true.
Yeah.
So I think Arizona's like they should be the best version of them, should be good enough to be right there. And so it's like, how much more gains are you really getting by pushing that much farther? And also remember, like, the starting rotation stuff, it all compounds. I mean, your bullpen is getting taxed, and then that is something in the sport that is like, it's even though it's happening right in front of you, it's all connected. Like, the pitching staff is all connected, and like, clearly that has an impact on the performance of everybody.
Well, before we let you go, you did join the show with the title of number one Yilber Diaz fan. Since you are the number one Yilber Diaz fan, we wanted to get your thoughts on his performance and what he did the other night.
Listen, guys, like, this is another one where pitching in 2024, like, this dude, all these guys, like, the development now is just so good that with the right tweaks and with the right people and athletes, you can create these major league starters who, okay, maybe he's not going to go be a rookie of the year, but like, even the fact that you can develop a player like that to give you, 6 really good innings with all these injuries, right? It's also one of those funny things. It's like, where has this guy been? Why hasn't he been starting for the last however many months? And we know it's not that simple. But it's just so cool. I mean, it's just a reminder that pitching in particular can really, really sneak up on you in an exciting way. And I don't know, you guys have a better sense as to what the long-term, plan is for him and how often we're going to really be seeing him start moving forward. But it's cool, man. If you can pitch in Reno and Amarillo for that matter, like, you're doing something right. That's how I always said about the D-backs pitchers. It's like, damn, I literally don't even know I don't have to know what you're throwing. If you're getting outs in those places, you are doing something right.
Well, we appreciate you so much for stopping by. Make sure to follow everything him and Jake are doing over there at Yahoo Sports on the Barbiecast. And you are at, is it J_Shusterman?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yep. J_Shusterman.
I'm terrible with names. You'll learn that.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I'm this is what I get for having a second underscore and having,
the second underscore.
My ancestors for my name, I guess. So, yeah, you're good. It's always a pleasure, guys. Always
we
fun.
appreciate you, man. Thank you again for stopping by. Thanks, see you in Texas.
See you soon.
All right, bud. Well, of course, things maybe
he fixed the Diamondbacks, Derek.
He did. It was that easy. Yeah. We knew if we brought in an expert, he would absolutely
100%.
help us out with that. Well, we do appreciate Jordan for stopping by. We appreciate you guys for being here as well on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss whenever our shows go live. Of course, drop us a like. We appreciate you so much when you do that. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe on your favorite audio podcasting app. Leave us a like, of course. And, of course, those reviews mean the world to us, so make sure to drop us those reviews. Of course, also, check out Bet365 if you haven't done so already. As a baseball fan, you should already know about Bet365's baseball early payout offer, where you are a winner if your team goes up by 5 runs or more with an instant payout. Parlay and same-game parlay selections will also be marked as winners. And with the way this Diamondbacks team is playing, I feel like at times that's a safe bet because you don't need to actually win the game in order to get your payout. You just need to go up by 5 runs. We've seen them do that plenty of times this season. Of course, right now, as a new customer, you can choose between 2 offers when you open an account at Bet365 and use our code of PHNX365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and choose between either a bet and get offer where you place a $5 or more bet and you get $150 in bonus bets instantly, or a first bet safety net match where you can place a bet up to $1,000, and if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Download the Bet365 app right now and use that bonus code of PHNX PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Before we move on to the next ad read, of course, Elise is asking the important questions, and it's hilarious.
And you guys are really on the same wavelength.
We are absolutely on the same wavelength. In fact, about 45 minutes ago in that office right over there, I told Jesse, I'm taking you to Pecan Lodge after having a conversation about good barbecue. And Elise here says, I can suggest the Pecan Lodge in downtown Dallas.
No free ads.
No free ads, but free ads. Anyway, speaking of paid ads, I love you, Ryan Reynolds. Just wanted to throw that out there. But more than just loving Ryan Reynolds and his wonderful films and his wonderful smile, I also love Mint Mobile because Mint Mobile has already saved me, if I'm making my calculation correct, about $300. And I say that because Mint Mobile is here to rescue me and you with a premium wireless plan starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can ditch your overpriced wireless plan with Mint Mobile's limited time deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. That's mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Well, of course, we got Jordan's take on what the Diamondbacks, on how to fix the Diamondbacks, but I guess we need to figure out how to fix the Diamondbacks. Take his advice into consideration here, but there is an interesting comment here made by Mike Hazen. And Jesse, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. I guess we can maybe start with what Mike had to say. This was just over a week ago to Nick Picoro of the Arizona Republic. Mike was basically asked, where would you guys need to be in the standings in order to buy at the deadline? And Mike said this: it's going to be where we are, or where are we down relative. I'm really struggling there.
Yeah, I know. Words are hard.
Let me try to do this one more time. It's going to be where are we down relative to how many teams are above us, like last year as we slipped down around the deadline. I think we got to like 2 or 3 out and we had 2 or 3 teams above us. That's a dynamic you can overcome. If you start getting too far down and buried behind and needing 3, 4, or 5 teams to lose and you win, that's not a good spot to be in. So suffice it to say, from Hazen's comments just over a week ago, that the Diamondbacks are not going into the deadline like we are buying no matter what. There is clearly a thought that is being given to selling at the deadline, or at least not adding significantly, maybe more of a kind of stand pat approach.
And that makes more sense to me, to be honest. That makes more sense to me than the Diamondbacks selling.
That's fair.
You know, I don't see a need to panic, and that's why I brought that up to Jordan, because of the fact that these guys are returning, right? These guys, the Diamondbacks, the players they would need to trade for are coming back. They're here in the organization. Right. They're just not healthy right now, but they are getting very close. Torrey had very positive things to say about Erod yesterday in his first bullpen session.
Glowing report, yeah.
And of course that, makes that is the biggest question mark, right? Like Jordan, there's some doubt because we've already seen him pitch. So I think Jordan could be easily.
You're talking about Montgomery, not Shusterman. Okay.
Yeah,
we know Shusterman can pitch.
We know he would come in and absolutely be dominant in our starting rotation. But Jordan Montgomery, meanwhile, there's a lot of question marks about, right? There's a lot of doubt there. And if Jordan did have, again, Montgomery, not Shusterman, a nagging injury that may have been causing, because players do play through injury a lot. They just play with nagging injuries, the way like Cattell has been having like the back spasms or the lower back, tightness and stuff like that, right? It's not something that, that was just there one day. No, it's there a lot, but they deal with it. And some days is worse than other days. And some days they just want to give them, a day off or whatever the case may be, right? So there's a possibility that maybe Montgomery comes back better than we've seen him all year long.
Yeah.
But we know we're getting Merrill Kelly back, and we know what we're going to get in Merrill Kelly. We know we're getting Eduardo, but we have no idea what we're getting. It's literally a mystery box when it comes to Eduardo Rodriguez and how he could impact this team. It's just you couldn't make trades at the trade deadline that bring you better pitchers than you're going to get back from those three. And those three should be back shortly after the trade deadline, much like you made that move for those guys. So, I mean, it does feel like there isn't a real need to panic. Plus, I will say that the Diamondbacks had a catastrophic July last year, right? Catastrophic July, historically bad. And they ended up 2 games below 500, which is where they are at right now.
That's
so
true.
I don't really, I mean, as much as this has been a tough season to watch at times, because it has been, these losses have hurt very much so, especially lately. You know, I feel like the losses over the last month have just, like, rarely are they like last night's loss where it just felt like you got beat, you know?
If ever there was like an example of a team that was in somewhat precarious position in the standings and bought and had success, the 2023 Diamondbacks are that team.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, they were right around 500 at the deadline, as you said. They were so terrible in July. And, you know, they weren't crazy aggressive at the deadline, but they were reasonably aggressive. They got a closer. They got Tommy Pham. You know, they did make some moves around the margins that very much helped down the stretch. And so it's hard for me to believe that the Diamondbacks, the team that did that a year ago and literally went to the freaking World Series in no small part because of those moves, that this year they're going to be in a similar position and be like, we're a little too far away. Like, maybe not worth the risk. Yeah. We don't really know how this would end up. I don't see the Diamondbacks doing that. However, as Mike is alluding to in these comments, if the D-backs are 5-6 games out, if there's a long list of teams between them and that third wild card spot, which is still a possibility. I mean, just looking at the standings, that is still something that could happen, you know, between now and the deadline on July 30th. There is still a world where things change and where they would consider selling.
I think the biggest thing is that you know, the amount of teams that are still close, which they're not as close as they once were, but in the National League, when you talk about, you know, basically the entire National League outside of the Marlins and the Rockies are separated by 5.5 games, right? That's between the final wild card spot that the Padres currently hold and the Nationals, where they are at.
Yeah, the Nationals are probably going to sell at this point.
Yeah, that's fine. But the Nationals, just like all of these teams, have no idea what the month of July holds for them, right?
Sure.
And honestly, the biggest problem with that is because they are so close together, the Diamondbacks struggle. They could find themselves 5.5 games out, just like the Nationals, right? So it's like, I could see that all of a sudden when you look up and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 5 or 6 teams above you for that third wild card spot, that you don't feel like you're going to make those moves that are going to, you know, impact the franchise that much and change the season that much. Who knows what they do though, right? I mean, realistically, I think the fact that we are so close is a benefit to the Diamondbacks not overreacting at the trade deadline and suddenly thinking that they need to kind of wave the white flag on the season.
I mean, based on Mike's comments, I'm inclined to think that if the trade deadline were tomorrow, the D-backs are buyers, right? I mean, he's talking about we don't want to be in a position where we're a good number of games out and there's a lot of teams between where we are and the wild card race. That's not the situation.
2.5 games back right
They're
now.
2.5 out of the race, 2.5 behind the Padres. The Mets are the only team between them and San Diego right now. Yeah. So if it looks like this, then I think the Diamondbacks are buyers. Granted, what does that entail exactly? How aggressive are they? Those are questions that we'll dig into more as we get a little more clarity on what their direction ultimately will be. But for me, I think the most disastrous scenario for the Diamondbacks this trade deadline, which I don't really think is going to happen, but if the Diamondbacks were to actually sell off some pieces, if they were to fall out of the race just enough to where Mike gets to the point where he wants to take advantage of what is probably going to be a market that will be very lucrative for teams that are selling off pieces. If the D-backs were to do that, and then 2 weeks later, you get Eduardo Rodriguez and you get Merrill Kelly, maybe Jordan Montgomery looks better, And suddenly the D-backs are a completely different team and they're starting to win games, and you fall just short at the end because you traded Christian Walker to whomever, right?
I knew you were going to say Christian Walker's
I'm presenting the most, like, the thing the Diamondbacks cannot allow to happen at the deadline.
They took all the bats out of here, so I can't hit you with anything, but I want to hit you with something. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Paul Sewald, value low. Christian Walker, value couldn't be higher, especially with what he did in California, right? And especially considering that I almost feel like the all-star snubbing of Christian Walker got his name out there a little more, where people were like, hey, like, let's look at the snubs. And then
people saw the stat head comparison between Pete Alonso and Christian Walker.
Yeah, exactly. That became a thing, right? And that's even gross to say, and I hate it. But also, it's understandable because of all the guys on the team that may not be with this team after this season. Christian Walker, absolutely, his stock is the highest, right? So, but it's also about what they would get if they bought, right? What would they pursue? And we don't really know. It feels like starting pitcher is an easy thing to say, but like you said, what happens if you do pursue a starting pitcher, even for just a short term kind of filling the role, filling the gap, and then you get all these guys back, and then Brandon Pfaadt's performing at a high level, and basically you're left with taking that player you traded for out of the starting rotation altogether. Like, it just doesn't feel
weird,
and it feels a little like too risky. It feels like it's the risk is higher than the reward there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the D-backs are in a buying position. What exactly are they looking to do? Mike mentioned in this story that Nick wrote. He mentioned a starting pitcher, especially one that would be controllable through next season. Diamondbacks. That is something that the Diamondbacks they're going to need to fill out this rotation a little bit, most likely in the offseason. So you can understand why an arm that's controllable would be of value to them if they could find it. Another bat likely on the infield.
Well, hypothetically, don't you have all 5 of your pitchers on paper going into next season?
For next season, so you have Gallen, Kelly, assuming the D-backs pick up the club option, which
no doubt
I would think. So Gallen, Kelly, Erod, Brandon Pfaadt,
and then up to Montgomery if Montgomery picks up.
And that guy stinks.
Montgomery probably will pick up the option. I mean,
so then what's the point of trading like a lot for a 6th starting pitcher?
Right. Especially one
fair point.
I mean,
it's not an urgent need on paper right now. I mean, it is an urgent need right now, but once you get the guys back that you're expecting to get back, it's no longer really an urgent need. And on paper, next season, you do have a full starting rotation.
Not even in love with, Erod and Monty, and specifically from my end, I'm just speaking at it from a realistic standpoint of like, we're stuck with Erod, and Monty is probably picking up that option.
Right. It's not a club decision. It's up to Jordan Montgomery if he's going to pick up that option, right? So it's like, if it was a club option, then that would be different because you would know that they probably would part ways with him, right? So this is one of those situations where, you're right. But Elise, of course, known baseball GM, she also hires actors to come play her role when we do takeovers and meetups and stuff. She says it'll be a bullpen arm or 2 and maybe a third base option. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and those are probably the most likely, right? We know that the bullpen arm is obviously something the Diamondbacks would probably have as a priority over all of these things.
They could use a left-handed reliever. We talked about that in the offseason. We talked about that at some points during the season. Nothing against Joe Mantiply. He's a perfectly fine, left-handed reliever to have on your team. But if he's the only left-handed reliever on your team, which is basically what it's been ever since Kyle Nelson got hurt and is out for the season now. I know Joe Jakes has been up a couple of times. He's a lefty who's been kind of an up and down guy. That's something that the D-backs would benefit from for sure. You think about who's facing the Bryce Harpers and the Kyle Schwarbers and the Corey Seagers, those, elite left-handed hitters if you do get to the playoffs. Joe Mantiply has held his own against some of those guys for sure, but he doesn't strike out that many guys. And there's a reason that swing and miss is the most highly sought after commodity when it comes to relievers. That's something that the D-backs could use in that spot.
He doesn't instill confidence. Like, you don't go out there and you're like, Joe Mantiply is about to shut this inning down.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that about a few relievers on our team.
Yeah, he's throwing 89 miles an hour. He's a ground ball pitcher. It's not Jose Alvarado going out there and pumping 99 miles an hour.
Yeah, a lefty arm would be nice. And for third base, what do you guys think about this Josh Rojas cat?
Josh Rojas?
You think that's an option maybe?
Oh, I'm familiar with his game. No, it's not an option because there's no way the Mariners are giving up Josh Rojas in a billion years. But what about Rengifo?
Yeah, that's the name. That's the name that keeps coming up. He's been really good for the Angels this season. He has an 800 OPS, a 123 OPS plus. He's been well above average offensively.
I don't think he also got injured recently, so he'd fit right in.
He did, yeah. You know what? That's a great point, Derek. I think that puts him over the top.
Gotta get a guy that's injury prone.
Welcome to the Diamondbacks, Luis Rengifo. I don't know if I don't think he's really a true third baseman. Like defensively, I think there'd be a drop off between Gino Suarez and him if the D-backs went that route. But yeah, and the fact that he plays a few different positions, gives you some flexibility. It makes sense for sure.
I think the Diamondbacks should trade Baxter to the New York Mets for Grimace and Frank the Tank
point
from Barstool Sports. And then when we get Frank the Tank over here, we'll fucking DFA his ass. Just immediately. We'll just cut him from the team. And maybe that'll help Paul Sewald out because that man cursed our closer. Why would we even have him at our ballpark? Diamondbacks, we need to talk. Shout out to Dirt Bike Boy 714. He says, are Sewald and Randall Grichuk trade candidates out of here? Well, Sewald's value couldn't be lower right now. So I think that's something.
Yeah.
But Randall Grichuk, that guy, he's delivered when the Diamondbacks have asked him to.
The D-backs, we've talked about it a little bit. The D-backs have a lot of guys that would be attractive if they decided to sell. Sewald, Grichuk, Jock Peterson has a mutual option for next year that probably won't be picked up. He's basically on an expiring contract. Who am I forgetting here? Did I say Christian Walker would be in that mix as well? Jordan Montgomery, I would have thought would be in that mix. I don't know if he would really be an attractive option at this point, given that you probably are getting next season of him as well. And the money is pretty significant there. So if the D-backs decided that they were willing to sell, they could get quite a haul, I think. And I'm sure there'd be interest in Ginkle. There'd be interest in Ryan Thompson, what the D-backs want to move off of relievers who have multiple years of control, maybe not. But yeah, they'd be in a pretty advantageous position if they did decide to sell.
Well, we are in advantageous position because we are here in Studio K, and it is the best place to be in this entire office, considering the Circle K snacks that we have behind us. You can also get yourself right now at any Circle K, any size, Polar Pop or Froster for just 79 cents. And on top of that, I don't know if I've told you this, but Circle K already has extremely cheap gas at a time where gas is not very cheap. But if you join their Inner Circle program for free by downloading the Circle K app today, you can get 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. So you'll save even more. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. You also get all sorts of wonderful deals in the app, as well as free offers for things like Polar Pops and hot dogs and all sorts of wonderful things. Pizza, coffee, ice cold fountain drinks. Don't miss out on everything Circle K has to offer. And again, don't sleep on these snacks behind me. They're Circle K snacks. They are the best that you can find in that store. Also, speaking of the best, we offer you the best deals that you can find. And when we say the best deals, we mean on tickets to the events that you want to go to. Baseball games, sporting events, comedy shows, it doesn't matter what. Check out Game Time for save 60% off buying tickets last minute. And of course, procrastinators, this is for you. This is your app. This is for people that get FOMO at the last minute and want to save a little bit of money. And that helps kind of grease the wheels of going. Like, you have to get up, you got to put on your shoes, but you're going to save 60% on those tickets. And you could save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And then save even more than that if you let Game Time pick your seats for you in whatever section you choose. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you have no mystery about what your seat view is going to look like. And they also offer the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, we haven't done this in a little while because this man's been on the road.
It's been almost a month.
And we have post-game shows, and he refuses to let me he was like, last time I let you take the power rankings out, you dinged it up. you got a speeding ticket in the power rankings, so he doesn't let me do the power rankings anymore without
Were you the ones who did the last power ranking?
I think so. I'm the one that messed it all up. But
I was wondering what was going on there.
Yeah,
It'll make sense now.
It's just chaos when I do it. But let's take a look at the power rankings for this week.
Yeah, we've got the Philadelphia Phillies. They are the best team in baseball. They have the best record, and they're just a very, very good baseball team.
Just a beast.
They're doing the thing. I think they beat the Dodgers like 12-1 or something last night. I saw Kike Hernandez pitching in the 9th inning. Not ideal from the Dodgers standpoint. The Baltimore Orioles are in the number 2 slot for us. We got the Cleveland Guardians at number 3, who continue to be very, very good, Derek, and probably deserving of a lot more respect than they have received. They are 57-33. They have a better record than the Orioles, better record than the Yankees, almost a better record than the Phillies. They're a game and a half behind them as we record this right now. So the Guardians have proven to be very legit, not the fluke that some of us may have suspected at the beginning of the season. Dodgers in the number 4 slot. They're not playing good baseball really at all right now, but they're still the Dodgers, and once they get a little healthier, you figure they're going to be in a good spot.
They lost 2 out of 3 to the Diamondbacks.
They did. That is a thing that happened.
They also got smacked around by the Phillies yesterday.
They did. Yeah, Bobby Miller really struggling for them. Their starting rotation is kind of in shambles right now with Glasnow hitting the injured list, although I don't think that's expected to be a prolonged absence. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is also on the IL right now, along with about 17 other starters. That would be like number 2 starters for half of the league.
You love to see it. You love to see it.
It's a rough spot they're in right now. Yankees at number 5.
Wow.
They are
plummeted.
Yeah, they're kind of on the struggle bus right now, Derek. Carlos Rodon his ERA has gone from sub 3 to I think 4.63 in the span of 5 starts.
Yikes.
He's not the only struggling Yankees starter right now. Kind of that whole group has regressed ever since Garrett Cole came back, oddly enough. Their offense is also taken a bit of a step back as well. So they're still in a really good spot. Their record is still outstanding, but they're not playing very good baseball right now. We've got the Braves at number 6. Sure, we'll talk about them more here in a second. Twins 7, Houston Astros 8,
wow,
Boston Red Sox 9, and then the Milwaukee Brewers 10.
Astros 3 games above 500 after their very, very slow start.
Yeah. Wouldn't that feel kind of inevitable, though?
Yeah, it does.
You didn't really think the Astros were going to roll over and go 71-91 or something,
plus
right?
38 run differential after having a very, very negative one. Yeah, I mean, no surprises there. I know it's been a while, so some of those changes reflect time as well. But the Twins been playing good baseball. Red Sox been playing good baseball. So
yeah, the Brewers are at number 10, and I will say that I mean they're 53-39. We've got a number of teams. I think there's 4 teams that we have in front of them that have worse records than the Brewers do. But I'm a little overly skeptical here, Derek, but Colin Ray has been just otherworldly good for the Brewers this season. And if you go on his Savant page, it's all kinds of ugliness.
Expected stats.
Yeah, it's not great. Freddie Peralta is really the only Brewers starting pitcher that is healthy right now that I'm like, yes, that is a good starting pitcher. So I have some questions there. The offense has no doubt taken some big steps forward. So, not to say the Brewers are a bad baseball team or anything, but out of that group, kind of in the back 5, I find myself maybe a little more skeptical of them than everyone else.
Well, that might be the major league power rankings, but you know who I have ranked at the top of my minor league power rankings? The Reno Aces, Jesse.
That's fair, yeah.
12 consecutive wins, a franchise record. They are on fire right now.
Yeah.
You can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them offensively. And I guess my question is, when do we just call up the entire Aces team? When do we just bring everybody up as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, you maybe have a week more tops patience with the major league roster. It's just shuttle all those guys up over to Phoenix.
No, but you know who I want shuttled up here is Adrian Del Castillo. I mean, Yilber Diaz, that guy, his story again that you wrote a wonderful article about. Everybody should go check that out at gophnx.com. His story is amazing, but the way he just matured so quickly and the speed in which he passed through Reno and came up to the Diamondbacks organization and was able to give them such an incredible start is amazing. But yeah. I think that then that that makes me and that makes fans want more of that. And when we see someone hitting 3 goddamn home runs in a baseball game, we're like, I want that guy. Give me that guy. Bring that guy up here.
I mean, I think what we've sensed in the last couple weeks with the D-backs is that they're starting to make some changes. They're reaching the point where they are no longer wanting to revert back to kind of the same guys that they have for, in various depth spots, specifically on the starting pitching front. We saw Christian Mena make a start. We saw, of course, Yilber Diaz really excel in his first start. We saw the D-backs move on from Tucker Barnhart, which says a lot about their belief in Adrian Del Castillo. And it makes me believe that, like, Del Castillo will be up in the big leagues at some point this season. It just feels like it's a matter of when that happens. And you could make a pretty strong case that it should happen very, very soon. Del Castillo, after hitting 3 home runs in the game yesterday, is slashing 332, 411, 636.
636.
Even in the PCL, those are really good numbers. I looked at the expected stats, which you'd certainly expect to be a little bit lower playing in that environment. He has a 300 expected batting average, a 546 expected slugging percentage. Still pretty darn good numbers. Really, really good barrel rate. Hard hit rate is up there. His 395 ex-WOBA is tops in AAA for guys who have played a good amount there this year. Pavin Smith is behind him at 386, but no one else is really all that close. Del Castillo really has been far and away the best hitter for the Diamondbacks in AAA this season. So, yeah, I mean, if he did come up, it wouldn't be, he's not starting over Gabby Moreno, certainly, but
sure.
Does he get a couple starts a week instead of Jose Herrera? And you might take a bit of a hit defensively, but maybe offensively, you could find yourself with a bit of an asset.
Well, I'll tell you, man, those Reno Aces, they've just been incredible lately. Like I said, couldn't set Chaparro had a walk-off home run. Like, there's just so many guys doing it for this team. So, again, they have a talented group of youngsters there.
Yeah.
It's just still the PCL. I'll just remind everybody of that. Everybody's superhuman. I would hit 275 in the PCL, and I suck. But
that is not true.
No, it's totally not true.
13 home runs.
I would hit 300 is what I'm saying. Huh?
50 RBI.
Yeah, 50 RBI. Easy.
See, I'm not sure that the PCL would really benefit people like you and me, because it's not like you and I are hitting fly balls to the warning track, that we just need some elevation to help push it over the fence.
Oh.
Like, I'm not making contact with the baseball, Derek, no matter what elevation. I mean, I guess the pitches move a little bit less, so maybe that helps us out a little bit. But 275, that feels a little.
I'm a barrel body boy. I'd get some home runs out of there. But I guess, the big question there is that, do we realistically see the Diamondbacks giving him an opportunity at this point of the season? Is that something that you could see happening, or is that a bit far-fetched?
Talking about Del Castillo?
Del Castillo getting called up.
Yeah. I don't think it's far-fetched. I don't think it's imminent. I don't think it's inevitable to happen in the next week or anything. But, the guy is doing everything you'd really want him to do in AAA at this point. And I know that the defense has been, from a hitting standpoint, they've probably felt pretty good about him coming up here for a while. It's more the defense, but he's made some strides there. He's maybe not ever going to be elite at catching base stealers or anything, but he's gotten better in that regard. The receiving has gotten better from what I've heard as well. So, maybe there is a bit of a defensive drop off between him and Jose Herrera. That wouldn't surprise me. But if you've got a chance to have a guy with who could come up and be even just a league average hitter, like, nothing against Jose Herrera, but there's a big difference between a league average hitter and what Jose Herrera gives you offensively. So it would make sense in my mind for the Diamondbacks to go that direction, but I don't know exactly when something like that will happen.
Well, Andres Chaparro and Yilber Diaz were both named Pacific Coast League Player and Pitcher of the Week on Monday. So
there you go.
Great acknowledgement of what those guys have been doing for the Reno Aces.
Yilber Diaz was in a big league clubhouse, I guess, when he would have found that out. So
familiar with his game.
He was.
We just met his biggest fan.
Well. Yes, we did. Yeah.
Speaking of which, big shout out to Jordan again. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And we have a very fun stretch ahead of us. Today is like day one of the stretch of Jesse having to put up with me for entirely too long. We'll be back.
Well, I guess tomorrow and Friday
we get a little bit of space. I mean, I'll see you at Chase Field, though. Don't think I won't see you at Chase Field. I'm still going to be all in your business sitting next to you.
I'm counting down the days until you guys are out of my life.
Yeah,
well, you
got what? 2 more days? We got Thursday and Friday.
Pulling off calendars every day when I wake up.
I know. Well, I mean, you just had a week away from us, and look at how sick you are of us already. But
this is my first day back in the office in like a month, and Damon already wants me gone. I don't know what to do with this.
And we have to the first day back, and we're immediately planning the trip that we're leaving for on Saturday. But yes, we will be out in Texas on Saturday. We will be there for the Futures game, as well as all of the activity out there, the MLB Draft.
Yeah.
Me riding around in the lazy river at the Rough Riders game. We'll be there for the All-Star game, home run derby, all of that. So, of course, that's going to be very exciting. Can't wait to do all that.
It should be great. Yeah, we'll be at Wrigley Field as well for the D-backs Cup Series starting off. We're
taking over Murphy's bleachers, man. I can't wait for that. So we got so much fun coming. Make sure to keep it locked right here for all of that. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at cap_caveman with a K. This maniac next to me is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, there's chat that like Elise wants to know why doesn't Damon get to go too? And Damon's sick of us, basically. There is no way.
Does it sound like Damon wants to go?
There's no way the 3 of us could share a hotel room and not have only 2 of us make it out alive. So that's the way that would work. But of course, make sure to follow Damon Dog. He is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. And we are and will forever be Damon's dogs, no matter where we're at. Bark, bark. Our show is at PHNX_D-backs, but of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We look forward to seeing you guys back here tomorrow night for our post-game show after the finale with the Atlanta Braves, and then we'll be back on Friday night for that first game against Toronto Blue Jays before we take off very early in the morning on Saturday. So make sure to stop by for all of that. And then we're going to be doing shows Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and not Wednesday because we were traveling on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we will be bringing you an incredible stretch of shows where even you might get sick of us. So we'll see what happens.
Impossible.
It really is impossible, but all right.
It's probably very possible.
Yeah, it's totally true. But we do thank you guys so much for being here. We look forward to doing all of that and bringing you all that content. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again for stopping by. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when MLB makes their draft exciting.
We all silly like the mayor.